This is Dream Job Dynamic, episode 003, where the subject of this week's career-boosting conversation will be one of the few times we'll feel a need to concern ourselves with your fellow job seekers. We're calling this conversation Introducing Your Future Former Competition. Stick around.
This is the Dream Job Dynamic podcast, dedicated to discovering your personally perfect dream job in 7 simple steps. Whether you're a boomer, a beginner, or a somewhere in betweener. Whether your plan is to ramp up your routine, ease off the gas a bit, or to take a side road in a totally new direction. With a dream job discovery as your target, you'll learn to define it, locate it, and land it. So, when you're ready to boost your bad self, let's set you up to be discovered with a proven process that takes very little time and doesn't cost a dime. You can do it yourself, but you don't have to do it alone. Boom that.
Thanks, Red, for the introduction. Today, let's take a quick look at the process from the perspective of your friends in the group that we call your future former competition. The value in today's conversation will be to learn from the most common mistakes of others, enabling you to avoid the missteps of the masses. By reviewing just a few of the most common errors made by your fellow seekers, you can benefit from their missteps. Our objective is to help you to be your best, not like the rest. The purpose of today's conversation is to point out some of the most common problems your fellow seekers will experience. Their problems will begin when they start a new search, which they will, without preparing for the process, which they won't. The best advice for powering up your personal career boosting campaign is to, just for a moment, consider the fumbles and failures of your future former competition. As a group, they will fail to locate and land a dream job simply due to their lack of planning. Bottom line, they suck at the search. Through our ongoing conversations, you'll be able to avoid membership in that crowded community. Now, experts tell us that in any challenge, whatever your goal, to find someone doing it right and duplicate their process is an excellent starting point. In this particular instance, I'd suggest a variation on that theme. We're told that fully 80% of all job seekers, past and present, have never had a dream job and don't know how to find one. With so many examples of poor job search planning, there's really a lot to learn by simply taking note of what doesn't work. You may think that since the vast majority have never found a dream job, that finding one is impossible or at least difficult. That would be false in either case. The seemingly universal problem is not that finding a dream job is difficult. The problem is that most people follow traditional, poorly planned search techniques that don't set them up for success. The hallelujah moment in your own search will come when you stop following the pack down a dead-end road and start with a fresh, new, more direct route to ramping up your routine. We're going to break that process down, as we've said, in 7 simple steps. Now, I wouldn't expect you to take my advice concerning job searching blunders simply because I've been there and made those mistakes myself, which I have. Rather, I'd like to share with you what I've learned by studying the job process for over 40 years, while helping many interested seekers to step up their game and to discover their personally perfect dream job, which, by the way, happens to be my personal pay-it-forward passion project. As promised, one way to perfect your discovery process is to watch how others fumble theirs. We will uncover what works by highlighting what doesn't. Many of your fellow seekers will get what may appear to be an aggressive head start by blasting out of the blocks in a rush to nowhere specific. Pushing the panic button, they will rush off, hopefully, to find some job without asking themselves, what's my plan? A faulty plan of attack for obvious reasons doesn't generally lead to a dream job discovery. For example, find a paycheck right now? That's not a plan. If your only objective is to find a paycheck, the odds are actually in your favor, as long as you'll be satisfied with Another job just like the other job that you lost, left, or can't wait to leave behind, as I've said before. That's precisely why we're told that approximately 80% of all working humans have never had a dream job, don't know how to find one, and don't expect to get one. So before you begin your search, the first critical point to address begins with planning, which is different from hoping to land a dream job. It's a point where your future former competition will blow right by that consideration. They'll miss a critical prep step that we'll be discussing in an upcoming session. We call that step number 1, defining your why. An observation to keep in mind, in the words of Winston Churchill, failing to plan, dreamer, is planning to fail. And following the lead of your fellow seekers by pushing the panic button and launching a search without a plan or a prayer is not a recipe for success, regardless of your objective. Back to defining your why. Dream job discovery requires taking a moment before you launch your search to do a quick prep check. A little deja vu all about you, if you will. While defining your why will test your memory, it is in fact a test where you, and only you, already have all the answers. The details that we will discuss and your future former competition won't will prepare you to articulate first for yourself and later for your dream job boss exactly who you are, what you do, and why you do it. That's your why. Launching a job search without knowing why is the reason, for most seekers, the job search process becomes distressing and depressing, which it doesn't need to be. So why ask why in the first place? Let me answer that question with another question. Simple question here. How can you possibly expect to know where you want to work, who you want to work with, and what you want to do when you get there if you don't first know why you're looking in the first place? Simple answer is, you can't. That's why our conversation needs to begin at the step number 1, defining your why. As I mentioned, with 4 decades of thinking like a boss under my belt, I can tell you one thing for certain. The best results will be achieved when you take just a moment to look at your own career view mirror for a simple personal history review. Most of your fellow seekers will fire up their search while paying little attention to the planning part. I think it's a pretty safe bet that they won't benefit from this planning session since, like Elvis, they've already left the building. Once they decide that a new job is their immediate short-term goal, experts tell us that your fellow seekers will polish up an old resume, poorly, and head out to hang that in all kinds of places, especially on the nearest internet job board. Not to worry, because even if they get there first, your fellow seekers will not know how to maximize their potential on those job boards, which you will. More importantly, when you enter the game, you will be prepared to stand out on any job board. At the same time, it's important to know that at least 80% of those jobs are never advertised and never posted to any job board. That's just one more point that you know that they won't, because they skipped the first 4 of our simple prep steps. Step number 1, defining your why. Step number 2 we'll talk about later also, introducing you. And we'll go into greater detail on all of these. Step number 3 is your secret sauce, and step number 4, your resume to remember. I can tell you that when you get to prep step number 5, your laser-focused search, we'll discuss the simple strategy to stand out from the crowd in any job search engine. Even with all the competition, you can blow that group right out of the water as well. More importantly, also in step 5, we'll break down the process to get laser-focused on the jobs outside of the board of the job board lottery, which includes at least 4 times as many opportunities. Think about that, 80%. That's 400% more job opportunities outside than there are in the job board system. Now, doing the math, and by considering a much larger list of openings, your future dream job boss is likely to be waiting in that expanded collection. You need to know that their companies will be geared up and anxious to fill an available position with your name on it, and would hire you right this minute if they could find you. So let's continue the prep process to make you discoverable. Now let's get back to a walk up the prep steps in an order that your fellow seekers will stumble through. We talked about how your friends will skip over critical planning. Step 1, defining your why. Now let's take a quick look at steps 2 and 3. Step 2 we're calling introducing you. It's a simple lesson in common courtesy. And I think common sense as well. Imagine what would happen if you had an opportunity to connect with a potential employer or their gatekeeper charged with keeping the riffraff out of the office. What kind of a reception do you think you would receive if you walked up to either person, slammed your resume on the desk, and demanded to know, how do you like me so far? All right, that's a little extreme, but the point, don't you think it would be nice to walk up and politely introduce yourself? You may make a better first impression. In introducing you, we'll talk about the importance and the specific content necessary, the keywords, size, shape, and all of that to create a killer letter of introduction. Knowing that most of your fellow seekers will skip an introduction, your letter will automatically stand out in a crowded pile of applicants. Since a letter, while proper and effective, isn't necessarily seen as mandatory, you can think of a well-crafted letter as extra credit. If you don't include a letter, you'll look like almost everyone else. No harm, no foul. But by crafting a short, half-page greeting, you have the opportunity to speak to a screener in your own voice. It allows you to interject personality, which is missing in most of the cookie-cutter resumes that they're about to encounter on their day's search. Step number 3, which will absolutely be overlooked by even your most well-prepared competition, I call simply your secret sauce. I'm going to leave that secret to another day, but I can promise you it's a game changer. This detail is an attention getter. It involves video, and you don't want to miss it. May even have the gatekeepers of the world forwarding your presentation directly to the inboxes of their organization's decision makers, those that will be in the running then, therefore, for you to choose as your next dream job boss. After all, our primary goal this time around is for you to become the decision maker in your own career story. If you've been wondering when the subject of your resume would come up, that would be after the first 3 steps. At that point, once you get to prep step number 4, your resume to remember, we'll talk about rethinking your career story. By revamping and fine-tuning your presentation, you'll be set up to capture the attention of resume screeners and, believe it or not, even the computerized applicant tracking systems of the world. An ATS, an applicant tracking system as they're known, is a nice name for the computers in a job board that, while sorting and selecting resumes for future consideration, they will reject 95% of all resumes in a nanosecond. I won't bore you with the failings of the future former competition in this resume prep step, but be certain that they will fumble this process as well. They will likely edit an old resume while including way too much of the wrong information. Here's a clue. The key to a noteworthy resume begins with 2 directives. Do not tell them what you did. Do tell them what you accomplished and how you made a difference. In step number 4, we'll also talk about keywords and keyword phrases, the importance of bullet points, white space, and proper length. We'll also talk about how to know what details are important to specific employers and where to find that information. When you get to the actual step 5 discussion, we'll quickly unpack your laser-focused search to highlight the search tools, techniques that your fellow seekers will fail to consider. We'll talk about how to find that 80% of all jobs that are never posted or advertised. You'll learn how to not only find potential dream organizations, but how to discover what they need you to know about them. You'll learn how to connect with individuals inside your target companies who can introduce you to the boss. We'll also demonstrate how to identify and even connect with the decision makers directly in your choice of companies. Step number 6 is the main event. I like to call this interviewing your dream job boss, or your inspirational interview, an intentional plan to allow you to influence a conversation in your favor. By adding more value to the conversation through your own questions, your interviewer will be pleased and impressed by your preparation. By mastering the ability to define your why and to present it articulately in a face-to-face conversation with an interview, you will enter into a position of power. Your confidence through preparation will actually allow you to direct the tone of the interview, believe it or not. Even the most experienced interviewers will have a tendency to shift into auto-interview mode by rolling into a standard question and answer routine. Bringing your own curiosity and research about their company to the table will be a motivation for the interviewer to spend more time with you. As they respond to your questions, they will begin to sell you on the value of their organization. Just a side note, your objective in an interview is to demonstrate your qualifications while giving the employer an opportunity to answer your questions. Your questions will demonstrate that you understand their why and are primed and ready to meet their challenges. Staying true to form, your fellow seekers will be predisposed to fumble the interview in a big way. When they get to the discussion of what to do in an interview, you'll see how your previous prep steps will have set you up for success. Most seekers will walk into an interview expecting a pop quiz or a pass-no-pass exam. Your preparation will allow you to change the tone of your interview from an inquisition to a much more positive conversation with like-minded individuals. Based on your prep, both parties will come to see your connection as a logical solution to solving their staffing problem. Win-win. Boom that. Your future former competition, on the other hand, most of whom will never make it to the interview process, will have predictably failed at another critical prep step relating to the question of why. Their first hurdle will begin with an awkward and unpolished presentation of their own why. Of course, it's essential for the interviewee to be able to confidently paint a picture of who they are, what they do or would like to, and why they do it. The fact of the matter is that the second part of the equation, which refers to the employer's why, as in why should they care about your why, bottom line, if your fellow seekers haven't taken the time to understand what makes the employer tick, the odds are of selling themselves as a valuable future asset are unlikely. By not going into an interview already knowing who they really are, what they really do, and the reason they do it, the interview is likely to be doomed to disappointment for both sides. It's impossible to form a win-win alliance if neither party, the employer nor the applicant, knows who am I talking to and why are we having this conversation. Finally, to wrap today's rant, once you've nailed the interview, you may find yourself alongside a small group of similarly qualified applicants, all with an eye on the same prize. You'll be almost to the finish line, but don't stop short. This is the point where your future former competition earns their title. They will have put all their cards on the table, headed for the house to sit and wait with fingers crossed once again. While they're hoping and praying at home, you have one more hand to play. I look forward to sharing the critical step number 7, we call the sealing the deal. That's worked well for me in the past. I'll share those adventures with you. Now, in preparation for your search, I hope you'll stop by our home base at dreamjobdynamic.com, where you'll find a growing Facebook community in which we can discuss common questions and action plans. Also on the site, you'll find the Dream Job Dynamic blog and podcast, and an ever-growing collection of free Dream Job Discovery resources. One thing I'd like to share with you is our Quick Start Guide to Dream Job Discovery in 7 simple steps. That's the fast-track tool that you can find all the directions you need to set your search on a productive course. Stop by dreamjobdynamic.com, download your copy. Once you've had a chance to walk through the Quick Start Guide, if you have any unanswered questions or comments, large or small, you can always reach out to me on email, david@dreamjobdynamic.com, on our website, or through social media platform of your choice by simply searching for #DreamJobDynamic. As a part of my Pay It Forward promise to you, I'm at your service for a free coaching call if needed and a courtesy resume review from my boomer boss perspective. Just a little double check before you hit the go button. If the topic in today's post hits any of your hot buttons, I hope you'll join the conversation at dreamjobdynamic.com, where our mission statement is, as captured through a thought by Zig Ziglar. You can have anything in life you want if you will help enough others get what they want. To that, I'll add my own pay-it-forward promise about dream job discovery. Takes very little time, doesn't cost a dime. One last request. Wherever we happen to be connecting, please leave a comment to answer the question, how can I best help you today? As I like to say, when it comes to your personally perfect dream job discovery, you can do it yourself, so you don't have to do it alone. So share the quick start guide with someone you know who needs it. Then come back. I look forward to meeting you on the inside to talk about your dream job discovery in those 7 simple steps. I have mine, the dream job, and I would be pleased to help you find yours. Come on back.